Welcome to I Drink, Therefore I Am, a think tank media podcast hosted by international spirits educator and whiskey ambassador Martin C. Duffy. Each episode, Marty sits down with distillers, brand builders, and industry insiders to talk about the craft, the culture, and the business behind the spirits world. Pour yourself something appropriate, and let's get into it.
There it is. Hello, everybody. Martin Duffy, the Crystal King of Chicago. Actually, I should change that. I'm now Crystal King of America. I got a little bit of promotion from Glencairn that I actually gave myself. And you are watching I Drink, Therefore I Am, a podcast that covers the whole, encompasses all of the drink industry, all the various facets and levels. And we talked to some of the legends, and I think we have one of the biggest legends there is in the cocktail world. If there was a Mount Rushmore, it would just be him. It'd just be his head. And then they're waiting for the other four. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Dave Wondrich, maybe?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yes, of course.
This is your legend looking like an unmade bed.
Well, it kind of looked like, when the head's on Mount Rushmore. Put it that way, Dale. It looks good. So anyway, everyone, Dale DeGroff, the King cocktail. No, it shouldn't be Cocktail King. It sounds King. You are King Cocktail.
Let me tell you how that happened at the Rainbow Room. We were right across the street from A Current Affair, that old TV show from the 70s.
Oh my God.
80s and 90s.
Kovich, I believe. Yeah.
No, Current Affair was like a sort of a news, much of a news program as Fox 5 could have. And the producer was a woman named Cynthia Fagan. She was one of my wife's best friends. And she was a big, tall, red-headed Irish woman who was a good drinker. She would come up if she'd had a particularly difficult moment and sit at my bar. And she said she'd had a bad day. She said, just start at the top of your beautiful cocktail list. That would be this cocktail list from the Rainbow Room with the beautiful Milton Glaser graphics. And I started at the top and started making drinks. And I got about down to here, right down to about there. And she said, wow, every one of these cocktails has just been great. You're the king. You're King Cocktail. And I said, oh my God, this was like 98. KingCocktail.com. I thought to myself, that's it. This is how I'm going to make my fortune. I didn't think that. I mean, I just thought, so I did not appoint myself a king. It came from my customer.
The Crystal King of Chicago, I believe it was Mike and Matt Blum from Blum Brothers Distilling up in Galena, Illinois. Hey, you know what? It's what was his name? Froman, the guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was the Sausage King of Chicago. I became the Crystal King of Chicago. King. So there you go.
Very nice.
Now, Dale, 98 though, you were already a pretty well-known established guy, especially in New York. Correct? I mean, you had.
Yeah, that's when I sort of made a little bit of a splash starting in 87 when I went to work for Joe Baum. I mean, Joe Baum, a genius in the industry. Outside of the industry, most people don't know who he is, but within the industry, people credit Joe with really essentially with his menu consultant of, oh my God, let's see, 53, 63, 73, 83, 32 years because James died in 85. James Beard was his menu consultant through all the great restaurants that he made during the Restaurant Associates days and afterwards, including the Four Seasons, La Fonda del Sol, Forum of the 12 Seizures, all these game-changing places, and inspired Alice Waters out in Chez Panisse, inspired so many. Larry in Chicago, who started the whole idea of the theme restaurant based on the theme things that Joe was doing in New York. He freely admits it, and he ended up with 98 theme restaurants in Chicago. You know who I'm speaking about.
The Melman.
Melman, he credits Joe with giving him the idea to go in this direction, So Joe was a genius, and working with Joe, you're getting his reflection shining down on you. So when we opened the Rainbow Room, every journalist from every part of life, from fashion to food to spirits to architecture to graphics, these beautiful graphics we had, everybody was interested in what we were doing. So very quickly I became a source. I mean, I had an office. I was not only head bartender, I was beverage manager. I mean, I worked a bar at night, but I went into the office at noon and I was there for the whole afternoon, order liquor, blah, blah, blah. We had 36 bartenders. There was a lot to deal with. And I get a call, they would route it to me because I'm the beverage manager. So as soon as some of these journalists started realizing that we were doing something different, number one, and that I could pick up the phone, because most bartenders, if they get a call from a journalist, are like, I can't bother with this now, and they'll hang up. So journalists have a hard time in that era getting a bartender to talk about anything because they just didn't have time for that foolishness. But I would always answer them and try to help them out with whatever problem they had. So I got on the list, and that led to, the Today Show and all kinds of stuff that put me in a very visual place, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of young bartenders glommed onto this fairly early in an era when being a bartender was not exactly your choice for a career. It was still suffering from the hangover of prohibition. Who wants to work for a gangster business? Basically,
Yeah.
but it had taken a long time for that to go away, and finally in the 80s, it had started to go away. And then they see this guy with his Eisenhower, red gabardine jacket and the thing and the incredible bar, and they said,
Did you create that, Dale? That image of yourself?
No, we had a Hollywood and Broadway designer design all of our costumes because there were 30 or 40 different ones. We had Philip. Call for Philip Morris. Remember that little pillbox hat?
Yeah.
That's what our greeters wore. We had pastel tails in the dining room. We had our gabardine jackets. Every position had a different uniform. We were a studio. We were basically a studio because we had a costume department where we all left we didn't take any of this stuff home. They spent a lot of money on these costumes. Mine was gabardine, I have them. They're in my closet now, and I wear them for special occasions, and that was 87, 97, 07, 17, a long time ago.
These costumes still fit in them.
We gave them, well, I'm using the jacket of the biggest bartender I hired, not the one I wore. Now, but we gave those costumes to a theater company in New Jersey.
Dale, am I remembering this correctly? Or I don't know. You hear stuff. Now, when Sex and the City came on, very influential with its cocktails, and obviously the rebirth of the Cosmopolitan.
Oh, the
now,
birth.
I always heard that you were the one who resurrected the Cosmopolitan. It had been around since the 20s, or a variation of it.
No, I mean, the Cosmopolitan from the 20s had nothing to do with the one that came out when Absolute Citron came out, because Absolute Citron, they're in Florida, they were, how they'll spot market a new product in a geographical area. They thought it was going to appeal to young women. So they hit the Miami Beach crowd. And that's where that Cheryl Cook story came from, because she was one of the bartenders who came up with the name Cosmopolitan. There was a Cosmopolitan in the 20s, you're right, but it had nothing to do with the Cosmopolitan of the 70s and 80s, or whenever Absolute Citron came out. And she did come up with a sort of a lemon drop, very sweet thing with Rose's lime juice, no fresh juice in it. And that was her recipe. And a bartender who worked with her came up and worked at the Odeon. And she brought the name up and the recipe. And at the time, Toby Cicchini was working for Keith McNally, who opened the Odeon. That was one of his early places and one of his very successful places. It was successful overnight. It had been a cafeteria, and he just left the name up there, Odeon Cafeteria. And he and his first wife were wildly successful in that location. And Toby she showed Toby the drink, and he said, "Well, it's sweet, and it's let me play around with it." And so he came up with a drink with fresh lime juice and Cointreau and lemon, and he put it on. He didn't put it on the menu. They didn't really have a cocktail menu. He he used it as a shift drink at the end of the shift for the staff, and then the people started ordering it who saw the staff drinking it. So really, Toby, and what I found the drink on a trip to San Francisco, because the chef at the Fog City Diner in San Francisco claimed that he had invented this drink, and my radio guys, friends of mine who were my friends from the Rainbow Room, actually, and my friends from the Hotel Bel Air when I worked out there in the 70s. I had the same customers, and they took me to this place in San Francisco, and I tasted this. It was still the old recipe with the roses lime juice, and it was like I said, "Carl, what's so special about this? It's like a lemon drop. It's terrible." And so I went back to the Rainbow Room. I wasn't aware of it being in New York. I didn't get a chance to go out a lot, to tell you the truth, at least during hours when the store. I would go to the Blue Ribbon because you could get in after 2, and you could get dinner after 2 until 4 o'clock in the morning. Those of us who work late at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I come up with a recipe pretty similar to Toby's, but I used the flamed orange peel, and that's what drew a lot of attention. Plus the fact that we were super high profile, and Toby was sort of underground.
Mm-hmm.
You had the gallery underground crowd, the Soho crowd.
Right. Well, but that was the thing, is that everyone said you brought attention to it.
I did.
And that's
did. And then New York Magazine saw a picture of Madonna sipping on one in the Rainbow Room for a private party in there, and they called me up because I had a really good relationship, because all the second shift guys drank at my bar, their lunch break, right? They called me up and said, "Okay, our guy just sent the photo back of a Madonna sipping on some pink drink. What do I say?" I said, "Here's what you say. Madonna sipping on a Cosmopolitan at the world's famous Rainbow Room." And that's what they put out on their wire. These guys were great. And so, within 48 hours, I'm getting calls from London, Australia. "What is this drink?" Germany, "Madonna drink. What is this drink?" So I started giving my recipe out. So everybody thought my recipe was the original recipe, and New York Magazine gave me credit for it, which I had to deny over and over and over again. And Toby, meanwhile, is busy denying that he invented the drink because he thought it was a stupid drink. Now he accepts authorship of the drink. It's sexy.
I spent a couple of years over in Ireland as the Diageo Reserve brand ambassador.
Cool.
And so one of my jobs was to, because nobody it was out of Guinness. That's where you worked out. It was the Guinness Brewery. And nobody there knew anything about spirits, really. So they thought they'd bring over an American to talk about spirits, and especially cocktails, which was a little bit of I made cocktails, but I was your standard bartender. I could make a Cosmopolitan, but we're now entering into the world of mixology, and that was not my world.
What year was that you went over?
I was there from 2008 to 2010.
Isn't that interesting? Because I started working in London in 1998 on a gig for Seagram's, who had picked up worldwide, or a UK distribution of the brand Absolute, still owned by Sweden at that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a guy named John Beach, who had another company called Peters and Beach, which did clubs and really cool restaurants, he got hired. He made his own company to do all the Absolute products in the UK, and he got me over there. He said, I'm going to take you around to bars. I'm going to get them menus. I'm going to get them equipment, anything they need. And I'm going to have a big cocktail competition. I want you to be the lead judge, and I want you to make your Cosmopolitan. It's going to be like 160 guys. And it's at the famous Atlantic Bar and Grill, which was still probably closed when you got there. It definitely was closed when you got there. That was the place where Dick Bradsell had Dick's Bar off to the side, a little speakeasy kind of bar, and then the big bar. And that's when I flamed all the orange peels for 160 bartenders. And I went, whoa, what the hell was that? And the judges were Michael Jackson, the beer hunter, me, Peter Dorelli, Salvatore Calabrese, and who else? I don't know, maybe someone else. I can't remember. And interestingly, it was an Absolute Citron sponsor deal because of the Cosmopolitan, and an older hotel bartender in his 50s. There's all these young guys in their 20s and 30s, and he wins the competition because it was a really good drink. and
Well,
and Peter and Salvatore, the old guys, we're all like, yeah, the score one for the old guys, right?
yeah. Well, but see,
It's comical.
I was going to bring that up with you. Because so when I bartended, I started bartending in 1990. I was an actor. And so I needed,
We all were actors.
yeah, I know. Well, yeah,
I was an actor.
I was almost an actor in name only. In that, if you're truly a professional actor, that would mean you're getting paid. And there wasn't a lot of pay. There was a lot of money. But that's why I really climbed down to bartending, because there was a lot of money in bartending. And so I was doing that throughout the 90s and into the early aughts. Well, then slowly moving over into being a brand ambassador for Diageo, doing the whiskeys, which I really loved. But I would go out all the time. I loved going to bars and going, especially here in Chicago. I would go to all the old school bars. I go at the late night bars. I go to old tiki bars. Cyril's House of Tiki on the south side down in Hyde Park was one of my favorite places. Not the best neighborhood at 2 a.m., but it was a good, it was still worth it for their zombie. But as time went on, and especially once I got into, once the mixology, the whole mixologist era started emerging, especially in the late aughts, I found that bartenders were no longer those old-time bartendery guys. Like you're a good storyteller. Yeah, I can imagine walking up and you saying something, hey there, mister. Hey there, you whippersnapper. What would you like? Whip up a concoction for you? Whereas, I heard this joke the other day. And that whole mixology thing, I felt killed it.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I came to New York 20 years before you started tending bar in 1969, 70. And I had left University of Rhode Island to be exact, where I was in the theater department, of course, and we had taken a play to the Yale Drama Festival by a pretty hot dog young playwright from the South. The play was called, see if I can come up with a title. It was about an incestuous brother and sister. The brother was severely autistic. The sister was pregnant by the brother. It was a very dark play. And it was by a playwright that had come out of the downtown New York scene and then made it to Broadway. So Brendan Gill, in his 80s at that time, of the New Yorker, their drama critic, comes to the Yale Drama Festival, and he writes a single paragraph in Theater Digest, not in the New Yorker, that says, best thing at the Yale Drama Festival is the play, and he names the play. It might come to me, it might not. By so-and-so who's on Broadway and, one of our own. And I went back to the university, packed my bag, and there was an Amtrak station in Kingston. I jumped on the train in my junior year, never looked back. I was doing good. I was on the dean's list because I put off all the hard subjects till the last year, right? Mm-hmm. And so I moved into the Sloan House on 8th Avenue near 34th Street, and sure that I was going to be on the Broadway boards within a couple of months, right? And I have to tell you, Martin, to this day, I've never been on the Broadway boards. I was right. Anyway,
it's funny. I have a bunch of guys. I have people. I went to school. I went to Columbia College for theater in the 80s and Second City. And it's funny. Everybody.
Second City was a great place to go.
I'm a good luck charm. One, all my roommates all got married. They all left to go get married. There, I was a little love charm. And then when I was at Second City, I performed with the likes of Steve Carell.
Of course, that's great.
Who's the Saul Goodman? Better Call Saul. That guy.
Oh, he was there too.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch of guys that I would perform with Andy Dick, who his life is not so good, but all sorts of folks who went on to bigger and better things. No, not Bryan Cranston. Better Call Saul. Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk. He's a Chicago boy.
He's a cool guy.
But then who else was there?
Well, the Saturday Night Live guys all came out of there, didn't they?
Right. Yeah, lots of them. I mean,
maybe before you that were there, though, probably.
Yeah. Well, no, Chris Farley. Chris Farley, he used to come into the bars I bartended at in Old Town. Him and the Murray brothers, Brian, not so much Bill Murray, but Brian Doyle and Joel Murray. So at Columbia, David Cromer and Anna Shapiro, they went on to win freaking Tonys.
Yeah.
Now, Tracy Letts. I did plays with Tracy Letts. He won a freaking Pulitzer. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
I'm a good luck charm for other people. But anyways.
Well, it took me about 30 seconds after my arrival in New York to realize that life was happening in the bars, just like you. I mean, every bar I went to, I found a bar that was my favorite. And people would ask me, what's my favorite bar? I said, name a neighborhood, I just lived in the bars. And years later, when I was telling the story about going to be an actor, and I did do some acting, and I even went out to Hollywood, and I got some work, but I ended up having 2 children and meeting a New York girl in Hollywood, and got 2 young squirts that I had to take care of. I realized that there's probably more money in what I was doing at the Hotel Bel Air than there was. So anyway, I at that time, it was pre. You still had jazz clubs. CBGBs hadn't even opened yet.
Wow.
It was kind of a different New York. I'm hanging out because I was a jazz fan from high school days when I met some pretty important older jazz guys, because my best friend's oldest brother, who just died 3 years ago at age 100. Would invite them up to the Mystic Motor Inn because he had a budget in the summertime during the season to bring these really, we're talking like little Jazz Roy Eldridge, who was the lead trumpet player for Gene Krupa. We're talking about Harry Sweets Edison, Jimmy McPartlin, all these names that mean nothing to the younger crowd, but were the top jazz. Roy Eldridge was like the Jimi Hendrix of his era because he played these really high notes and the kids all dancing a Lindy to that big orchestra. He had a nervous breakdown because he was the only black man in the orchestra. He ended up spending the next 5 years in Paris after that was over, just to detox. They'd get to Chicago. He told a story to us. We became friends with him because I continued my friendship. He was playing down in Soho, which wasn't Soho then, at a jazz club, the only one in downtown area, called the Half Note, which was at Grand and West Broadway, I think it was. And it was an amazing club. And you would walk in, it was a corner property, and you're looking at the long end of the bar facing you, and there's a bouncer because they tried to keep 18-year-olds out, even though you could drink at 18 in that era. They wanted an older crowd, and we were not quite I wasn't quite up to 21. My Jerry Holland, whose brother was the piano player, and Roy we had met him back at the Mystic Motor Inn, and the guy's giving us crap about going in, and the way the band was up on the shelf behind the bar, that's the corner, dining room's over here. The band can swing back and forth and play for both sides of the restaurant when the people in the dining room didn't have to put up with the yahoos in the bar, and vice versa, And so as he's swinging back to the dining room, he sees the guy giving us some shit, and he leans over and goes, "Those cats are with me," and then goes on playing. And we're like, whoa. So we nail ourselves to a couple of bar stools, and until 4 a.m, because in that era, every single club played exactly the same schedule, half hour on, half hour off, from 9 till 4 a.m. And we were there right till 4 a.m, and there was only one white guy in that band. His name was Mousy Alexander. The singer was Mr. 5 by 5, Jimmy Rushing, Mr. 5x5, because he was 5 feet tall and 5 feet wide. He was a huge guy. I don't know how the shelf didn't fall down with him up there. But Mousy Alexander, the white guy, little tiny guy, drummer, comes around afterwards and he goes, yeah, you guys, you really helped make it happen tonight, because we were yelling our heads off, right? It's the most exciting night of my life. I'm only in town like a month, and this is happening, right? And it was one of those never forget moments of New York. Number one, I sealed a friendship with Roy, because then he moved up to Jimmy Ryan's club on 54th Street. The boys who owned this club, the Canistel family, they took some money from the wrong people so they could open the club uptown, and they became a topless joint because these guys, lent them the money, and those things happen. And the one thing that stuck with me was every time I would tell people about this or whatever, they say, yeah, New York's a great place, but I wouldn't want to live there. And my feeling was always, good, don't live here, because what I would say to young people coming to New York later in my career was, don't expect to go out and find a good time in New York City, not unless you bring some of it in the door with you.
Yeah,
This is very hard.
True. Very true.
This town, makes there are expectations, to being a New Yorker.
That's true though with any kind of nightlife. Same here in Chicago. You go into a bar and you want to be a wet blanket. You're going to get wetness all over.
You got to be open to it. You got to be open to whatever experiences might be coming your way, good or bad.
There would have been a bar here in Chicago you would have loved back in my bartending days. There was a little bar called the Get Me High Lounge, and I remember there was a lot of graffiti on the walls, and one of them, somebody wrote "Stan Gets Me High," which I always remember. Yeah, and the bathroom was on the stage, so it was a really tiny, small bar. So to go to the bathroom, you had to actually walk up through the band and got off. But
so it's hard to do a line of cocaine, because if you were gone in the bathroom too long, everybody'd know that you were in there.
Right. But also too, what was really cool, and this, you don't see this anymore, they, zoning and all that other crap. It was they had a backyard that they just piled a bunch of sand and put car seats in the sand. So you sat out there with your drink, you could listen to the music. They left the back door open. Oh my God, I was in heaven. It was great. But like
where I hung out in Chicago, where I hung out?
Where?
The Green Mill.
Of course, yeah.
My favorite place, man.
Patricia Barber every Sunday. God. I think she might still even be performing there.
There was a blind Hammond organ player and a guitar player and a female singer that had the weekday gig. And I ended up hiring the guitar player because I traveled with a show called On the Town. It was the history of the cocktail and songs and stories. And everywhere I went, I needed a good guitar player, because I'm a saloon singer who gets better the more he drinks, kind of a guy. And so I need a really good guitar player to cover my mistakes. And I could play like 2 tunes and then I turn it over to him, right? And this guy was just brilliant. I think I did it at the Violet Hour. I did the thing at the Violet.
You did. I was there.
You went to that?
Yeah. I was there. Yeah.
That's guitar player.
That's the one and only time I actually met you.
That's so funny.
I went up to you. You walked right
through running it
like it was ghosts, but that's okay. Huh?
Who was running the Violet Hour then? I'm trying to think of who.
That was, what's his mug? I mean,
Toby?
that was
Toby founded it, but I don't know if he was still around then.
I think so. He was.
Probably, yeah.
I think he was. That place.
Did Charles Jolie worked there for a while? Maybe not.
I don't think he did. He should have.
No.
You would have thought.
Actually, he and I went to the Green Mill together. I gave away a beard award last year in Chicago because they added 3. Count them. 3 new beverage awards.
Wow.
Our brothers out there in the culinary world have finally looked over to us and said, "We see you." So I gave the outstanding cocktail server to Nacho from Super Bueno in New York City, which was a shining moment for me. Nacho was a barback at um, Saxon and Parole, and a best friend of my son in his early days behind the bar and at the bar. When that place was it was such a good place, Saxon and Parole, and Nacho was the super duper barback who went on obviously to owning his own place and having amazing cocktails and food, sort of Mexican street food, really good stuff.
By the way, I just saw Charles last week judging the San Francisco Wine and Spirits competition.
Yeah. Well, he and I went. He came, and we went afterwards to the Green Mill. And it was a Saturday. What are the beer awards? They were on a Saturday night, were they? And we walk into the Green Mill, and I'm thinking to myself, "This is going to be bad. We're going to be way back in the back corner of the room, probably standing." Well, we walk in, Charles and I and another bartender, and three guys at the end of the bar where it makes the turn, which means the band is right there.
Mhm.
Three guys get up and we go in and sit down. I mean, it was like a friggin' miracle. And we all looked at each other like, whoa.
I mean, I consider it a big honor if I can get that Crescent booth right there. That's where Capone supposedly sat.
Let's go to Al Capone booth, right?
Because he could see both doors. He could see both doors, front and side door. Actually, and also too, another little fun fact about, you ever see the movie, the James Caan film Thief? If you haven't, it's a Michael Mann film from the early 80s. One, I think you'd love it because there's lots.
Sounds familiar. I can't picture it.
Lots of early 1980s Chicago bar scene in it.
Oh, cool.
But one of them, he owns the Green Mill. His character owns the Green Mill, and he blows it up. So you got to watch it.
My God.
But fun. I always love that because it's such a Chicago film. They really filmed so much of it here in Chicago. A couple of things I want to talk to you about to hit on in our limited time. The other thing that you've been known for quite some time, and I haven't been very active in the bar industry as of late, just because my work takes me more towards distilleries. So I'm not sure, is the bar 5 still happening?
Yes. Just for everybody who doesn't know, Bar 5 was called Beverage Alcohol Resource Bar. That my partners and I, that would be David Wondrich, Paul Patcolt, Andy Seymour, Steve Olson, Doug Frost, myself, we all were together.
There's your Mount Rushmore right there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we were sitting around the table. Paul and I had tried to interest Richard at the Peter Kump School, which later became ICE, Institute for Culinary Education. We were both teaching there. I was teaching a class in bartending and history, and he was teaching whiskey. And we tried to get Richard interested in making a beverage that we would run, Paul and I, cocktails and spirits. And he said, it's a great idea, but we're about to change our name. We're about to renovate the whole place, and this is not a good time. So we were kind of bemoaning the fact. And Steve, and as you may have remembered, if you took their class, the Seagram School of Wine and of cocktails and spirits, I took it, when I was at the Rainbow Room. They were bemoaning the fact that stupid Edgar Rompin Sr. broke up the biggest company ever in the spirits business, and they were suddenly without a home for teaching. And of course, David, thrilled that he wasn't a college professor anymore, and doing the Esquire, column. We all looked at each other and we said, well, Jesus, I mean, this is the brain trust right here. Let's just start a company. Dr. David Wondrich, he's got his doctorate. That's our legit. You got to have a doctorate in order to give a certificate at any kind of educational institution. And there he was, ready to go. And we said, okay, let's just do it. We had meetings about it. And we started with a 5-day master's class in New York City. And we decided to do it twice a year. After 2 years, we did it once a year because our schedules were so insane for to find 5 days plus the day before, the day after for the setup and the breakdown when we could all be together, almost impossible. And yes, we did go right into the aughts and beyond. And it was only 6 years ago now that I think David and I and Andy and Paul are no longer there. Steve and meanwhile, we were training young people to take our places. But Steve and Doug, and by the way, it moved into the Culinary Institute of America now. It's not part of their curriculum, but we do it there, and their students have access to it. And John Fisher runs the beverage there now. I think he just retired finally. He was with the Rainbow Room. We shared an office. He was the wine master at the Rainbow Room for one of the many while I was there. And so David had big writing projects. Paul wanted to go off in another direction, working with the distiller on a new project. Andy had his own company, Liquid Pro, which does back of the house for Diageo and big companies like that, as they do their events around the country. I got hooked up with Ted Bro, and we're doing, not only did we do our cocktail billiards, which was okay, that was only one little thing, but when we got the spirits, then it was much more full-time stuff, and so I left the company, but we still went back. I mean, like David and I would go back one day and do the fun stuff, I would make, Cafe Brulot, we do Blue Blazers and all the fun stuff that people love to see. So yeah, it is still going. And I would think if the CIA has any brains at all, because they have no cocktail program of any kind, they're sending all these brilliant chefs out, and the biggest profit center in their soon to be open restaurants, they haven't got a clue about, so there's nobody teaching that there. And I'm thinking they should just embrace this idea, get a Diageo to build them a building with a working, half a dozen working bars or whatever, and really make it a part of this great culinary institution. And now after the Beard Awards this last year, when they had outstanding cocktail server, outstanding new bar, outstanding beverage server, added to, the old outstanding bar team that they came up with in 2010. I won the award in 2009, but there was no award. So they wedged me into outstanding wine and spirits professional because there was no cocktail award. Next year, Olson put some pressure on, he was on the board, to at least create a bar program award so that they could give a general award to great bars. And that's what it was until last year.
A number of years ago, back in my Diageo days, which was after the whole Seagram's breakup, before that, I was with Shefflin Somerset. And then,
oh my God, what a company.
I know. I loved it. I had such a great time. And then it was kind of fun too when Diageo first kind of formed and no one knew what they were doing. Law Freedom was nice. As it grew, it became more corporate.
Yeah.
I'm not a corporate guy, Dale. You probably sense that. I'm a maverick, much like yourself. So we, but Stephen used to do this thing. I forget what it was called, but it was great. It was a whole day. They'd bring in all the distributors, the Diageo folks, and he would just go through all the brands and do comparisons and stuff. And he is so smooth. He was such a great talker. And a great presenter. I love those. And then I understand
Leo was one of his assistants for a while. His assistants last about 2 years before they can't stand it anymore and they run screaming out of the room.
Well, and I can imagine because
it's tough.
It was like a Cirque Soleil. The way they put it, they put it on, man, those drinks, they came out. There was no stumbling. There's no nothing.
It was tough.
And as Stephen was talking, it was almost like those drinks went down on cue. And it was for a big group of people. And after that, it kind of got me thinking, and I don't know if you know Gregor Katnak. Gregor was in charge.
Not personally, no.
He was in charge of education for the whiskey side of Diageo up until recently. And
were you friends with our buddy from Compass Box? Was he there at the same time you were there? Yeah, he was there before you, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was before. He was an executive too. He didn't deal with little guys like me. I didn't meet John until later.
He knew his whiskey, man. I'm telling you.
Oh God, yeah.
Wow. I went to his little distillery in London one of my trips, I went to the store, then we had lunch. But he is such an innovative and interesting whiskey guy. I mean, I think he was the first one to put 100% grain in the bottle.
Yeah.
Now everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
You know,
No. I mean, there's always these funny little guys that pop up, who you didn't suspect. No one thought an executive would go on to do that. Or I don't know if you know my buddy Dave Schmier, who I'm always talking about. I got to stop talking about him. But Dave, I met Dave when he owned actually, this kind of ties in with Seagram's. He used to run Absolute Current promotions.
Oh, sure.
And he hired me to be a promotional manager for him. And so I was doing that.
Those were the Michelle Roux days, right?
I don't know.
Michelle Roux was running Absolute for America for a while.
They didn't. I wasn't invited to those parties. I was a promotional. I was out in the field.
Out in the field, right? Tilling the soil.
and actually, as time went on, I mean, it was all that whole era. It seemed like only about 3 or 4 years before Seagram's got all broken up. In fact, I used to do Chivas for Seagram's out in L.A. I have some stories I could tell you about my L.A. days.
Big Latino crowd for the Chivas.
But what was so anyways, Gregory and I were talking about creating a spirits academy. And especially with all these brand ambassadors, thought, well, you know what, some of these guys are aging out. I could tell that Diageo wanted younger brand ambassadors, and most of us were, 40 or plus, and that's old as far as brand ambassadors. So we thought, well, let's start an academy, maybe in Kentucky, and we could be everything. It could be all about spirits, it could be about cocktails. We could have writers, we had all this, had this big brain idea, but you talk to brands, and now I don't think Diageo has the wherewithal.
Well, Diageo had first refusal if they wanted it, because they hired us. They hired Bar. They had first refusal for the thing that became Bar Smarts, but they decided to go with some actress from the TV show Las Vegas instead, and they spent a lot of money sending her around the country as a face of the brands. But we took the idea. Actually, Pernod Ricard came to us. They came to our 5-day master's class with a couple of their executives, because you didn't have to be a bartender to take the 5-day master's class. We had 2 different tests, one for professional bartenders and one for distillers, business people, owners, whatever, It was a much less onerous practical test than the bartenders got. But the Pernod Ricard company came to us after their executives sat through the week and said, look, we want to do that. We want to do it in a day or online or both. And we want you guys to be responsible for the intellectual property and the software, and we'll get the hardware guys involved. And we'll call it Bar Smarts, but we want it to be not the master's class, the 5-day master's class, which you really need to have a lot of credentials to go into that 5-day class, because it was hard. We had people leave the second day crying and never come back, because you're tasting through, flights of 10, 12, 5, 10 all day long. And the words are flying around, and they're just like totally intimidated, because bartenders were never taught how to taste. Doug and Steve and I were always like, who made that rule? This is a culinary art. Who the hell made the rule that bartenders don't have to learn how to taste? So Steve and Doug had to teach the first class they taught every 5-day master's class. Every time we did Bar Smarts was the basics of tasting. Some of them knew it. Some guys who came from the wine side or had taken wine courses, but basically your average bartender was totally intimidated by tasting. By the time the second day rolled around, either you were comfortable by the end of the second day or you ran screaming out of the place,
Well, that was the thing with bartending, though. I mean, like when I started, it was I needed a job, and so, because especially here in Chicago in the 90s, almost every bartender was a former actor and or a working actor, and you did it so you could pay rent. But it's funny because as time went on, you think, well, chefs have a passion for cooking, but only later on did the bartenders start coming on who had a passion to actually create cocktails and learn about the actual individual spirits and how they, came together. That's why I believe Violet Hour hired people who had no prior experience.
Well, I did
wanted
that at
to
the
learn.
Rainbow Room. So Joe wants me to create basically a pre-prohibition 19th century cocktail program at the Rainbow Room. That's the assignment he gave me in 1984 when I went to work for a little fine dining restaurant that he opened with a French chef named Gerard Pangot, because his partner, Arthur Emile, big real estate guy, his partner in Windows, Rainbow, two separate companies, wanted a lunch place. So he gave him one. Joe was not a Francophile by any stretch of the imagination. As a matter of fact, Joe and James shared a vision, which is why they work so well together, of a new American cuisine. And where is it? Why are all the 4-star chefs French? Maybe a couple Italian, and it really, in that era, 50s, 60s, 70s, that's the way it was, and it's not that there wasn't an American cuisine. There were lots of them. There was Cajun, there was Tex-Mex, there was no, but, for it all to come together in some kind of a fusion, great America. And it wasn't about North America exclusively. Joe opened his third important, well, fourth it was actually on the list of restaurants, the chronology of restaurants. So 53 was the Newarker, 57 was Forum of the 12 Caesars, 59 was the Four Seasons, 60 was a place in the brand new Time Life building, the Luce family, right? That big company. And on the ground floor, they wanted a restaurant because they heard what was going on over at the Seagram's building on Park Avenue, a world-class restaurant coming in. They had opened at 59. The Luce family wanted a similar world-class restaurant. So Joe, on his vision about the Americas, decides to explore all of the Americas. So he sends people to South America, Central America, Mexico, even the Caribbean. We had mole, we had ceviche, we had, listen to the cocktail menu. And I have the original menu over there. My son found it on eBay from La Fonda del Sol. There were mezcal drinks. There was a pisco sour. There was a mojito criollo. There were 4 tequila drinks. There was sangrita and tequila. There was sangria, the pitcher. And this is 1960. The Spanish had a pavilion in the 64 World's Fair, and they made this big fuss about, for the first time in America, sangria, And I said, no. I'm looking at that menu from 1960, Joe, pictures of sangria with vodka in them, right? And so he was just such a visionary. He was so far out in front of the group. And I remember putting a pisco sour on the Rainbow Room menu in the early 90s. We opened in 87. This menu was one of my early menus, and I didn't have it on this one, I don't think. This was the 88 menu, and it wasn't on here. Listen to the 88 menu: the Algonquin, the Americano Highball, the Between the Sheets, the Bronx Cocktail, the Coffee Cocktail, the Colony, the Flamingo, the Floridora, the Jack Rose, the Manhattan Margarita, Martini, Moscow Mule, Negroni, Old Fashioned, Peach Cobbler. I snuck that one in. It was a joke. Pink Lady, Planter's Punch, Ramus Fizz, Sazerac, Sidecar, Stork Club, Southside, 20th Century. The bartenders were ready to hang me from the nearest light post, right? And this was a menu that I had to sadly go to Joe and say, Joe, I think my eyes were too big for my talent.
Yeah.
I want to shorten this menu a little bit because we haven't figured out the production values to make it happen yet, And I thought, because it was such an expensive coated stock, Milton Glaser graphics, I thought, oh my God, he's going to fire me, And he didn't. He said, no, I understand. I was wondering about that. He said, do some edits and send it to my office and we'll talk about it. And we knocked about 10 drinks off of this list. Oh, but the obvious ones. Of course, we're going to take the Manhattan off. Of course, we're going to take the Margarita and Martini. Nobody needs to know. We're going to leave on the classics, old stuff that nobody has a clue about, because that's what sold this menu. People hadn't seen any menus, let alone menus that had drinks from the 19th and early 20th century.
I know. That's why I like when I go. I have a Scottish sales director who he used to sell Coors originally. Then he started working for his cousins at Glencairn, And so I was introducing him into the cocktail world, in Scotland. Cocktails, vodka Coke. That's a big one. So he came over and we went to Please Don't Tell in New York. And I said, you got to go here. But I realize we're going to have to introduce you into cocktails. And so it's half joking, but at the same time, not. I ordered him, I didn't order him a Pink Lady, though. That would have been interesting. I did get him a Grasshopper, a Brandy Alexander, and then there was one other. They're all just,
the Golden Cadillac.
No, I wish I did. But even that I thought might be a little too much for him. We went out drinking once in Glasgow, and he got trashed on White Russians.
Easy to do. They go down like chocolate milk or they're easy.
I know, but it's like, just don't down them. It's a cocktail. You just sip.
Martha Stewart. I did Martha Stewart's show pre-jail. The pre-jail show.
No, PJ.
Actually, I wish I had done a post-jail show because she was a much nicer person after jail. But I remember her telling me this. We met in the morning while her minions are setting up all this stuff. Pisco Sours, by the way. I was doing a Pisco Sour, and she had a lot of Peruvian staff, which was an interesting story because there was a problem in Peru with politics, as there is. It goes in cycles. If you're not in politics, you're in jail. And then if it switches, the people that were in politics are in jail and you're in politics. That's basically the way third world countries run their political system, and that's what Trump is trying to do here. If you're not,
I've seen Bananas, the movie. So,
yeah. So anyway, she said, oh my God, I just remember my days at the Plaza Hotel. All my girlfriends, we would knock those Alexanders back. Gin. Forget brandy. Knocking these things back. She said, we used to get so wasted.
Now, Dale, have you ever? I mean, I know you have cocktail books, but have you ever written a book about just like your history or even the history of?
In my books, there's a lot of stories, like the front papers of how much wire do I have here? This is the 2017 edition of Craft, which is essentially a new book in a lot of ways. And I never had a chance to address the New York City of 9/11. So I have a lot of front papers here, which is all prose, before we get into the cocktails. And it gave me an opportunity to address a lot of things that I wanted to address. I never had the opportunity with the old book, plus the old book, which was basically the book I wished I'd had in, the early 70s when I started tending bar and nobody knew anything, and all the old timers, they gave you some good information. They also told you how to act and they told you how to treat customers. That was amazing, but not much cocktail knowledge because nobody was drinking cocktails. I mean, it was really Scotch and rocks, vodka and the rocks, highballs, lowballs, Tab, Perrier, Chardonnay. That's the shot, and you didn't really need to know a whole lot more. You make a good martini, a good Manhattan, everybody could do that. And some bars didn't even put the Angostura in anymore. I mean, the joke that we Tony Abogano and I tell is that in that era, basically every bar had Angostura bitters, but most of the labels were either missing or all torn up, and nobody ever used them anymore. And the joke was that what's going to last longer, my bottle of Angostura bitters or my marriage?
Well, so, see, that's a good point. As far as having a book or any kind of instruction. I've worked with a number in the past when I was bartending. I'd work with these people who came out of bartending school, and they knew how to make a blended pina colada or something. That's about it. They didn't really know. They knew nothing about brand names. I had one girl lift off a printer chit that said, she comes to me and goes, do I have to go to the kitchen for this? I go to the kitchen? What? It said beef tonic. And I go, beef. feeders, you know. I go, oh my God.
I know.
Or another one, completely different woman at a different establishment. Same thing. She goes, how do you make this? And it said Doors Rocks. And the both of them had graduated from bartending school. I just thought, come on. And the other thing that I missed that I used to really just love doing when I was a bartender is, even though I didn't smoke, I'd find these old vintage cigarette. This is back when you could smoke indoors. Vintage cigarette dispensers and old cool cigarette lighters. So I was always there for a smoke, and I'd buy a pack of cigarettes and put them in the thing. Nice. Yes, sir. There you go. Unfortunately, I had a lot of jerks that go, "Oh my God, look at all these free cigarettes."
Take them all, right? Yeah.
Run out. One. Show some decorum, would you?
Yeah.
Now we're about out of time. In fact, I think we're over time. But where can someone meet you again? Where are you going to be? Yeah, are you going to be down at Tails? You're going to?
I will be at Tails. Both of my things are on Tuesday. I'm doing a Pechakucha with a mob of mentors. Pechakucha is you have 6 minutes and 40 seconds and 20 slides that change automatically to tell whatever story you want to tell. So I thought I'd approach it conservatively.
That's all they give you. All these decades, 50 years of bartending, they're going to shove it into 6 minutes.
That's what I'm going to do. But later in that day, with Elaine Duff, one of my favorite people in the business, one of the smartest and best people in the business, I'm going to be in a room, and there are going to be other rooms with other mentor type folks in them. And there's going to be groups of people that come through, and you just chat and tell stories. So I'll have 3 hours to do that, but I'll have 6 minutes and 40 seconds in the earlier afternoon to tell my story.
Will you be strumming your guitar? Will you have your guitar?
I'm not gonna. I might sing, but I won't be strumming my guitar.
Well, all right.
I sing a cappella. Don't worry.
And then BarCon in Brooklyn, will you be there?
I'm not going to do BCB this year. I'm going to be in town tomorrow. Tomorrow at the what's it called? Oh, the Ivory Peacock. We're having a gin. It's a big gin bar. They have hundreds of gins behind the bar, and Philip Duff is putting it on, and I'm one of the gin experts, whatever.
Experts.
I'll be in the basement at the little speakeasy over in the corner where they found some old pictures of 19th century baseball players when they took down the sheetrock. Ask David about that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a sporting men's club. It was a really cool place.
That's a cool, I'm a Chicago boy, born and bred. So there's a little bit of big old New York. But anytime I go to New York, the history there is amazing. And I love those old buildings. And you build out I'll go to McSorley's, even though they only have the two types of beer. But
for the rest of my life,
it's history. Yeah. It's so much history there. Yeah, even the little cobwebby.
I'm going to leave you. Won't make the cut. I'm going to leave you with a quick Maddie Marr story. Maddie, the last owner, now his daughter owns it. My wife and I are sitting in the table across from the bar by the window. It's a winter's day. Big glowing potbelly stove where they had the big tea thing that kept the moisture in the room. And she's drawing a guy at the bar who's leaning against the bar, and there's a dog at his feet, and it's an idyllic scene, And she says, I really love this drawing. And she was working on a book called Lush Life at the time. She said, I want you to show this to that guy and ask him if he would mind, giving me permission to use it. So I go up there, I said, excuse me, sir. And I showed it to him. And I said, that's my wife over there. She's an artist and she's working on a book. And she wanted to know if you would give her permission to use this drawing. And, oh, sure. I don't care what you do with it. I own a joint, don't you? I said, oh my God. I'd never met him, right? I said, you're Mr. Marr. I said, Maddie. I said, oh, Maddie. Got a chance to join us for a few minutes? Sure. I'll go sit with you. So he sat down with her, Jill and I, and he starts right in. We said, how did you end up owning this bar? That's the biggest question, because there's only been like 6 owners since 1853, right? Or 7 at that time, right? So, it's a story. It was It was a fucker of a night. It was storming outside, and I was broken in here and broken in here. He hit his pocket, Yeah, and I was a commercial driver, and there it is, the Cadillac along the side of the road. And then he tells the story about meeting the guy who owns Big Shorties, and on and on and on. Flash forward, David Wondrich and I are shooting some footage, and we've talked Maddie into being part of it. Some historical footage. So we're all sitting at that same table, and I say to Maddie as the cameras are rolling, I say, Maddie, I want you to tell David and the rest of the guys at the table here the wonderful story you told me and my wife about how you ended up owning this joint. Right. Which one would that be? Right. I said, Maddie, tell any story you want. So he tells this one. He says, oh, I've got a good one for you. He said, I'm up at the bar, and one of the boys comes over to me and he says, Maddie, you got to come to our table. He's got a real jerk over there. He says, what is it? Just come over, Patty. So he goes over there. What's the problem over here? He says, I don't want to order two. Says, well, that's how we sell them here, 2, 4, 6, and 8. We don't sell them by the one. And he said, everybody else is happy with it. What's wrong with you? He says, I don't want to order two because then the second one's going to get warm. Well, then drink the second one first. Drink the second one. Of course, that's the solution.
Yeah, that's Irish logic.
I love it. Maddie was a character.
Dale, thank you very much, man. This could go on forever. That's what I'm thinking. You got to put all this in a book. Or start your own little YouTube channel where you can,
that would be more fun. Yes, a book, nobody's going to read.
Or why don't you have a podcast? Everybody and their dog has a podcast.
Too much work, man. Too much work. I got to run around the country selling my booze. My knee is busted. My hip is broken.
Yeah. Same here. Look at me. There's nothing. I have nothing below.
Nothing going down below there. You're probably not even wearing pants. I don't.
We didn't share. No, I mean, come on.
Well, when I can't get out of this chair, that's when I'll put on my podcast.
Well, okay. Right. All right. Well, I don't know. That's going to be a while. You seem to keep on going, man.
Story time with Dale. How about that?
Well, sir, thank you very much. And people, especially those going to Tales, go see Dale. All right. Don't be a stranger.
Thanks for spending time with us on I Drink, Therefore I Am. You can watch every episode of the podcast inside Hospitality Nexus, a global human-first platform bringing the hospitality ecosystem together in one place. Inside the Nexus, it's a career fair that never closes, connecting industry leaders, educators, students, employers, and partners through real presence. Create your free account and explore the community at www.hospitalitynexus.org. And until next time, sip thoughtfully, drink responsibly. Slán Che.